Clean air, clean water, not terribly crowded. I think those features really seem to resonate with everybody on the planet. It doesn't matter where you're from, whether you're from Atlanta or Hong Kong or Denver, you're still those attributes are desirable. And then I think what sets Aspen aside from a lot of the mountain towns is great recreation, beautiful setting, like all the mountain towns. But we also have amazing culture, amazing art.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Colorado High Country Real Estate Podcast, where we talk all things real estate that pertain to us here in the mountains of Colorado. And I've got a great guest lined up for you today. My name is Dave Metzler. I'm your host, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing kicked off. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. Okay. All right, so I got a great guest for you today. I've got Doug Leibinger from Compass Real Estate in Aspen. But first, before I bring him on, I just thought I'd play a funny little clip for you here real quick.
Someplace warm. A place where the beer flows like wine. Where beautiful women instinctively flock like the salmon of Capistrano. I'm talking about a little place called Aspen.
I don't know, Lloyd. The French are assholes.
Okay, I just love that clip. I think Dumb and Dumber really brought a lot to Aspen. But let's go ahead and bring Doug on board here. Here you go.
I did.
Okay, there he is. Hey, Doug, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Great.
That's a very funny clip. I have to say, a lot of the filming of that movie was actually done in Breckenridge, though.
Yeah, and actually, wasn't the hotel actually the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park?
I think it was. I think that, they did some clips up in Estes Park also, so it always cracks me up.
Yeah, I know. That's such a great movie, though. You're in Aspen. Do people reference that movie still? I mean, it's, 25 years later, probably. Do you still hear people mention that or reference it at all?
Every so often, occasionally it pops up, but I think that has seen its bygone days.
All right. Well, let me give a quick introduction to Doug here. Doug is a broker with Compass Real Estate in Aspen in Snowmass area. Doug was number one broker in Aspen in 2021, number three broker in Aspen 2022. Wall Street Journal Real Trends has Doug as one of the top 125 brokers in the United States and one of the top 5 brokers in Colorado. He sold over $1.5 billion in real estate. Anything I didn't say right there, Doug?
Well, the nice thing is I think I'm knocking closer to 1.7 in my career sales at this juncture, but it's them's bragging rights, I guess, and I'm not a braggadocio person, so I will leave that as it is, and just feel eternally grateful that I love what I do where I do it, and feel very fortunate that I've got a lot of great clients that put their faith and trust in me, and I've guided through a lot of transactions over the years. So
yeah, you have. First, hey, tell me where you're sitting. You got some nice aspen trees behind you. We're in fall right now. It's actually Halloween today. We're filming on Halloween, so right in the middle of fall. But man, it looks really beautiful where you're at, Doug.
Thank you. I am actually sitting in my backyard.
Nice.
And I'm actually located in Basalt, right down by the Roaring Fork River, and feel pretty fortunate. And if we're lucky, maybe a rainbow trout will raise its head in my little pond that I have right behind me.
Oh, that's great. That's beautiful. Very cool. Great. Well, let's talk about the Aspen Snowmass market for a minute. Just in general, give me your state of the market right now. What right now, end of October 2024, going into our winter season, what's your take on the state of the market right now?
So it's been an interesting year. I think we had this big run up during COVID and a lot of COVID escapees that left New York and LA and Miami and all cities, frankly, to get to the mountains and to get to little beach towns. And, it sort of was this trend that we saw. And I think it, it was a notable shift in our marketplace for 2.5, almost 3 years. As we rolled into 2024, I think we all had some concerns that, we were just seeing these high levels of activity and that things would slow down. As it turned out, the first half of this year was quite robust and very active. And then we hit a little bit of a lull. And I think a lot of that, frankly, attributed to the fact that we were rolling into an election year cycle. And in the 28 years that I've been in this business, I have seen every election year, regardless of who's running and what's happening on that forefront. Just everybody kind of hits a pause button. It seems like there's a pause or a stall. And psychologically, even if folks have money and sitting, on money on the sidelines, they just kind of take a step back. And that seemed to take place in April, May, June, even into July. And then all of a sudden, this end of summer and into the fall, so far, we've seen traction again in our market and a lot of activity. So many things have gone under contract recently. A number of closings have happened, and I think by the end of this year, we're going to see continued sort of strength and good numbers in our market dynamic.
Yeah. Well, interest rates were kind of creeping down there a little bit, but I read something just the other day. They're kind of back up again. They were
Yeah,
back up over 7 or something.
yeah, I do think, frankly, those are going to adjust again. I think we're going to see another adjustment here in the not too distant future, and things will ultimately edge down. But I think if you look back historically over time, I mean, I have some senior brokers that a number of whom now were kind of sort of like mentors to me, and many of them are now in retirement mode, but they were doing business back in the sort of late 70s into the 80s, and they were like, what's 7%? It was
Yeah.
20% interest, back in that time. So I
We got
think,
spoiled.
yeah, I think that people are sort of adjusting to a little bit of a new norm, and moving forward, those days of 3 or 4% were, that was a brief blip, and probably not sustainable. And I think that was, if you locked into a mortgage at that time, you're lucky. If not, I think business is normal and will continue to go.
Yeah, yeah. No, my company, we cover most of the mountains of Colorado. So we have a pretty good pulse on what's really going on because we're covering a lot of different markets. And we've really seen a big pickup in real estate activity across all of our mountain counties just in the last probably 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
And it's not really showing signs of slowing down at the moment, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the attributes of a lot of the mountain towns in Colorado, with safety, a safe place. You can have your kids run out and go play and not think about it. Clean air, clean water, not terribly crowded. I think those features really seem to resonate with everybody on the planet. It doesn't matter where you're from, whether you're from Atlanta or Hong Kong or Denver, you're still, those attributes are desirable. And then I think what sets Aspen aside from a lot of the mountain towns is, great recreation, beautiful setting, like all the mountain towns. But we also have amazing culture, amazing art, amazing restaurants, great shopping, and I think we're just seeing that be an attractive uh, factor. No matter where you are in the world, I think people find that to be very desirable. So,
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned clean water. I kind of have a joke. I feel like up here in the Colorado mountains, I call it, we're in the top of the water food chain,
yeah, for sure.
right? All the water starts here and flows down, and water right out of our tap. It tastes great. I've
Yeah.
never had a problem with our water here. So funny you mentioned that. This is such an ongoing issue for us. Local housing versus the luxury market. And I know you deal mostly in the luxury market, but what's going on in Aspen and the Roaring Fork Valley right now in terms of trying to get more affordable housing? or things like that. What's your take on the state of things right now when it comes to locals versus out of state buyers?
So it's a tricky topic. There's no question, and I think all the mountain towns are seeing this as a major factor. I think we're really fortunate, frankly, in Aspen that years and years ago, and this has been going on for 35, 40 years, that there was a certain amount of money set aside in a taxable trust or an account for employee housing, and a requirement that on a taxation basis that employee housing was built and constructed, and that is an ongoing continued effort. So Aspen's very unique in that we have a real sense of a community year round, and there
Mm.
is a lot of employee housing. A lot of people live in town year round, and it makes for a great dynamic in our marketplace, which is, we're very lucky. I think some of the other mountain towns are really struggling with that, but it continues to be an ongoing issue. And you know, there are a lot of community efforts happening that I'm seeing, and dialogue and construction of employee housing that is going on, and I think will continue. Now we're in a point where we don't have a lot of land to work with, so
Mm-hmm.
you've got private landowners, and if you don't have incentives to build a large, complex, then it makes it makes it a challenge. But it is, there are people that are in the initiative, and they're making an active, thrust to try to improve that situation. So
What does Picken County have first time buyer assistance programs and things like that available?
they do. They do, and in Aspen, there's the APSHA, which is sort of the Aspen Employee Housing, sort of fund, and they do give help with your first time mortgage for those that get into the market, and will reduced rate mortgages, which certainly helps a lot, which is great. Very very fortunate to have that in our community. The town of Snowmass Village is doing the same thing. The town of Basalt is doing that. Carbondale has started. So other communities within our Roaring Fork Valley are actively engaged in trying to help that process. So.
Oh, okay, great. So if anyone wants to take advantage of that stuff, contact Doug or contact the county. So, Doug, Aspen is notorious for lifestyles of the rich and famous and very high end properties. Just want to show you a real clip, real quick, and I actually have two clips here. I'm going to show you real quick. This first one's kind of quick. You got to pay attention to it a little bit. Let me show it to you. One kiss is all it takes. Okay, that clip, I'll play it one more time here. What people think 1.5 million will buy, and the reality, and it's just kind of a normal house. And let me just show you this other clip real quick, Doug.
The Aspen Merry-Go Ranch. 8-bedroom main house and a 2-bedroom guest house for $55 million? First, fuck you. That's insane. Oh, and a 2-bedroom guest house, 5 garage bays, an 8-stall barn, and a 13,000 square foot gym. Whoever built this house is an asshole. That's like if the guy from American Psycho lived in Aspen, this is what he would build.
Okay, sorry for the language there, but that's actor Seth Rogen. Both of those clips make a point of just how outrageous Aspen is, and a lot of our mountain towns are. I live over more in the Vale area, and it's outrageous here as well. But I guess the question is how do you balance that? How does the county balance the ultra wealthy with the people that are just living there trying to make a living, who work the jobs that allow the town to happen and all that? But how do you deal with even just the stigma of Aspen? Does that come into play much for you at all?
So I moved to town 33 years ago, and when I first moved here, I had effectively $500 to my name. My wife always jokes with me. She's like, "Well, you had $10,500 in your savings account, but you had $10,000 in credit card debt. Pay off your credit card bills, and I'll date you." Basically,
Yeah.
was the message. I'm grateful to her that I kind of followed that lead, and um, you know that started. But I had 4 jobs for a long time, whittled it down to 3. Eventually, had 2 jobs. Finally, kind of started to track on a real estate career and have been able to survive. And there are a lot of young people that move to town and do the exact same thing, and and I'm sure you see it over in Vail, and I hear these stories in Telluride and Crested Butte and the other towns that people, if they really desire to move to the mountains and live there, they figure it out and they do what it takes, and they make it work if they want to stay for the long haul. With that said, yes, the dynamic has shifted. I think when I first moved here, the thing that I appreciated was that I could go for a ski run and saddle up to a local bar and have a beer and be sitting next to a billionaire, maybe not knowing that, and we'd talk about the ski run or the day on the mountain or the day on the river fly fishing or whatever it was. And there was a real sense of mountain camaraderie. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, I'm hearing this in all the communities that there's this exponential growth in pricing has seen some separation of that dynamic, um, and yet I think at the end of the day, what I've found in Aspen is that it's still a mountain town for mountain people, and that it's not a there's some locations in the planet, maybe Malibu or Palm Beach or Scottsdale, where even Dallas, where people are. The flash is what car you drive, the clothes you're wearing, all that. I think people here just simply love the mountains, and so there still is this real sense of camaraderie and enjoying this mountain experience that people still commune with and resonate with, and I think they have still have a commonality. Um, when you are talking about 40 and 50 and $60 million properties, there's a little bit of a disparity, and for many years the high watermark was 8 million or 10 million or 15 million, and yes, that's a lot of money. It's like this whole nother level that has happened, and I just read about a sale in Vail that took place. I think a record-setting sale for 40 million, and so it's happening everywhere. But I'm
Yeah.
finding that's happening in every desirable place on the planet. If you're an island person and you want to be in Maui or St. Bart's or wherever, there's these exponential sales too. So I think that's just going to continue, and I think that people that find those communities to be desirable are going to pay a premium to be there, and hopefully the community it's based in a lot of nonprofits, a lot of community efforts where people are supporting the arts and culture and all those elements are just going to continue to be a thriving and dynamic place to live.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. No, the mountains are, we've got our both sides of the coin, and really, like exactly like you said, it's like if you want to be here and you love the mountain lifestyle, you'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I did the same exact thing. I came here, no plan, 31 years ago, no real plan, worked jobs, and you finally kind of figure out what you want to do and how you can make your mark and stay here and live here. That being said, let's talk about another kind of hot topic right now, short-term rentals. I think on the ballot coming up here in just a few days, there's an initiative here in Colorado to tax not only short-term rentals but homes that sit vacant. And I believe the measure says something about kind of leaving it up to individual towns to impose taxes. What do you know about what's going on with this, and what's your take on it?
So I have a lot of clients that own short-term rentals. They've got a property, they own it. It's a second home or a third home for them, and they want to derive some rental income during the course of the year to offset their expenditures. I personally own a couple of short-term rentals myself, and listen, I think taxing those properties is, in my mind, is okay in the sense that it helps to sustain the model. What I don't like to see is a community saying arbitrarily, oh, we don't like short-term rentals, so we're going to eliminate that. I think that that is a homeowner prerogative. I think if you choose to rent your place out, and obviously if you have a rental, you're opening the door to uh, a broken wine glass or a broken chair or whatever. And it's not like it's a perfect model. And if somebody's willing to do that, they should have the ability to do so, in my mind. And I think that if there's a taxation that goes into community benefits, I don't think that that's a negative. Um, I do think that it should come from really more of a statewide thing. And the reality is Colorado's a tourist state, so it makes sense to have places available for people to rent and to come and to then keep people working on the ski hill and keep people working in the restaurants and the galleries and the shops that make this a thriving community. And it's what this whole area has been based on for 60 plus years. So I don't think
Yeah.
you want to upset the apple cart too much by limiting or restricting arbitrarily because it's some random town council or whatever that says, oh, I think we should get rid of this. So
Well, from what I kind of saw, I'm not sure that it was necessarily random, but I think they were, talking about using those taxes to then throw into affordable housing and things like that. So maybe
which
it's, I don't know, could be
which
a
I'm
good
in favor
thing.
of. I think that's fine. I think just like the community housing and the taxation that Aspen and Snowmass and now Basalt has in some capacity. I think if there is a net benefit to employee housing and that's a way to um, sustain the valley, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. So does Aspen have short-term rental permits and like a limited number of them?
It does. It's relatively recent. It's only happened in the last couple of years that there is a lodging district core. So there's about what I want to say a 5 square block area that's part of the lodging zone in Aspen. And
Okay.
those properties that are within that area have the ability to do short-term rentals with no restrictions. If you're just outside that 5 block area, the new restriction is you have to. It's a minimum of 30 days of rental. Um,
Okay.
there's not a restriction beyond that, and obviously somebody could rent their place out for 6 months or for a year, and there's no restrictions there. So that has shifted, and then outside of that outlying area, you can apply for and get a short-term rental license. And
Okay.
yes, they have been restricted and they are somewhat more limited, but they are still happening. And I think the town is trying to figure out the sweet spot of how many short-term rentals licenses should there be, and then there's an application process to go through to get that. So
Okay. So what would you tell a buyer right now who might be looking for an investment property and wants to do Airbnb or whatever short-term rentals? How do you walk them through that process and how do you kind of warn them of potential dangers?
So it's just being up to speed on the market and guiding. If I have a client who says, "Hey, I really want to live, I want to have a property in Aspen, and I do want to rent it, and I do want to have unlimited ability," then we're relegated to a very specific area. The same thing happens in Snowmass. If there are certain complexes that allow short-term tenancies and others that don't. So you just have to advise your clients accordingly and make sure that they are aware of those limitations. And if there is a building or a complex that does not allow short-term rentals, you just want to steer clear of having them invest in that property. And so it's just being up to speed on the particulars, the local specifics of each little market sector. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how's the inventory right now in Aspen? Is I know nationwide inventory's been down for a couple few years now. How's the supply of inventory in Aspen in the Aspen, Basalt, Snowmass area?
It's still a pretty tight market overall. I would say that after that kind of COVID spike where there was virtually no inventory. It's something would come on the market, and I ended up putting a number of sort of off market things together where I learned of a property that might be coming to the market, found a buyer, and put transactions together. Um, Inventory has definitely grown in the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look back over a 10 or a 15 or a 20-year cycle, it's still pretty limited. I mean, we are seeing a little uptick in overall inventory, but it's still somewhat limited.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It feels like we're slowly changing from that seller's market we've been in for a few years, slightly changing kind of towards that buyer's market side. You feel
I
that
agree.
at all?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I am finally starting to see some price reductions where properties have been on the market for a lengthy period of time, and if they did not sell during that spike of the market, I think sellers are coming to terms with valuations and starting to do price reductions with some consistency. And with 2 or 3 price reductions, all of a sudden you're seeing a lot of those properties go under contract. So there is a sweet spot in pricing where
Right.
people are willing to engage and come into the market. They just want to see a value that makes sense. So
Are you still seeing over asking offers, or is that kind of subsided?
for very unique properties that have unique attributes, yes, I'm still seeing some properties that go into a bidding war and that sell for a big premium. If you're on the river or it's a very unique, ski in, ski out kind of a property that has a certain appeal, there there are some what I would, it's like any market, right? There's always going to be those A plus plus pieces of land that are truly kind of a one of a kind, and I think people are willing to pay a premium for that. If it's something a little more commonplace, then yeah, you're not seeing sort of that over ask bidding war cycle that we did see for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still hearing of that a little bit here and there, but not as much as I was.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Good if you're a buyer, maybe not good if you're a seller, right?
right.
uh,
Agreed.
yeah. So Doug, Aspen again, very high end market. Um, a lot of obviously well off people, influential people. Um, how did you adjust to that initially? When you kind of started to get into the luxury home market, um, was that a transition for you to maybe operate on a different level, or what do you do now in when you have we'll just call it a very high end client?
So I guess I would go back in time and say that when I first landed here, I was a fly fishing guide. I took people out on the rivers. I did some ski instructing back in the day. I worked in restaurants. I did a variety of things. I worked, but my first kind of real job in Aspen was opening the Ritz Carlton Hotel.
Mm.
And I'm very thankful and appreciative to have that as kind of a baseline that I learned really good customer service training that the Ritz Carlton employed. And they wanted to, they often said, our little credo card was ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And we were, as employees, you did not pawn off somebody to someone else. If they wanted directions to the restaurant, you left your desk and you took them there and guided them. And I've tried to just simply employ that with every client, every person, every customer that I've worked with over this many years, of just treating them with respect. And it's irrelevant how much money they have. I had a record-setting sale. It was the most expensive home to sell in the state of Colorado, and super proud of that. And I will tell you, I was as probably more proud to help my daughter's ballet instructor list and sell his house. And my bookkeeper, I brought in that I've worked with for many years, and he got out of employee housing and bought his first free marketplace. And this was a a lower price point, but I was so proud to help those two have a successful transaction. And so it doesn't really matter to me. I just try to treat every person I work with respect and guidance and expertise and knowledge, and hope that it works out. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's pretty much what I figured you were going to say, and that's the right way to do it. Um, so tell our listeners that might be listening, might be thinking about moving to Aspen, maybe even just going to Aspen on a vacation. Um, what makes Aspen different than some of the other ski towns? For example, like I said, I live over in the Vale area. Vale is also a high end town. Um, but what would you say to somebody who might be thinking about property in Aspen, and then maybe they're looking in Telluride, Breckenridge, Vale? How do you convince them to come to Aspen?
So I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think the unique attributes of Aspen are the fact that it's really one of the more beautiful places in the state, and all the mountain towns are beautiful in their own right. So don't get me wrong; they're all beautiful.
Yeah.
We do have really amazing immediate access to nature and wilderness, and I think we're surrounded by so much public land, maybe a little bit more so than some of the other mountain towns, and have like truly like just walk out your door access to the local wilderness. But then on the next level, I think the fact that Aspen has been here since the late 1880s, it was a mining town, had sort of a dormant, what we call the quiet years in the 1920s. And then in the late late 40s, after World War II, the 10th Mountain Division soldiers who had trained in Camp Hale, which was just right over Independence Pass, came back to Aspen and a lot of the mountain towns, but founded these mountain communities and said, wow, this is a really special place. But there was enough of a community that still lingered from those 1880s. So we've got fourth and fifth generation families that still live here in this valley. And there's a sense of community and a sense of permanence that our area has that I think a lot of the mountain towns don't have. It's not quite as transient feeling. It doesn't have that sort of, in out mindset. I think there's a lot of permanence, and the cultural aspects. The fact that the Aspen Music Festival, which happens all summer, is in its 75th year, and the Aspen Institute, which is a think tank and sort of has world leaders come and sit on stage, and you can anybody can go in and buy a ticket and listen to a head of state speaking about whatever is topical at that time is pretty unique. I think the music, the art, the culture, the food, the dining is really, really top end, and I think that is something that separates Aspen from most of the other mountain towns that I've spent time in.
Yeah, yeah. There was something just a few weeks ago. What was it? Some sort of big. I don't remember what it was. I remember hearing something about some big event, but you guys get a lot of those sort of world class events, speakers, symposiums, those sorts of things seem to happen quite a bit in Aspen.
We really do, and it is pretty unique, and I think that it's a benefit. I certainly, my wife and I have raised our three daughters here, and every Sunday we try to go to the Aspen Music Festival, listen to a classical music concert, take a blanket and the paper, or, New York Times and a bottle of wine, and hang out and listen to music, and go catch a lecture, go to Belly Up and get a world class musician that rolls through town. It's pretty special, and I feel very fortunate that the community can just the Aspen Music Festival. You can sit out on the lawn for free. There's no restrictions, and just enjoy world class music in a unique environment, and that's pretty special. So I feel like that's something that sets Aspen a little bit aside from some of the other spots.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, I want to talk real quickly about Snowmass. For some people that don't know, Aspen's kind of the main town, and then Snowmass is a nearby ski mountain, but then the homes and everything are more of kind of a typical, just kind of ski mountain, like a little village and no real town and a bunch of homes and stuff. what type of, I mean, what makes somebody go towards Aspen or go towards Snowmass, um, in your opinion?
So I'd say the following: Aspen Snowmass, and they're kind of marketed, you know, that way. AspenSnowmass.com, and if you look on the website, that's kind of how it's marketed. The mountain comes, you can ski right into town. Then you go over to Aspen Highlands, which has this, some of the best off-piste backcountry type terrain that's avalanche controlled, and hike up into
Some
Highlands Bowl.
good
Um,
steep stuff there.
is
Aspen
Yeah,
Highlands is a good steep mountain.
it's amazing, and it's definitely a local's favorite. Then you go to Buttermilk, which is where the X Games are, but it's also just really gentle, easy, beautiful, kind of mostly greens and blues terrain. And then Snowmass is huge and massive, and it's kind of Vail-esque in lots of big, wide open, intermediate cruisers, lots of vertical, and so I find that the people that are mostly attracted to Snowmass, to answer your question, are families that are, you know, like to ski as a family. Maybe they've got young kids or grandkids, and they can roll out, ski a wonderful day on a nice green or blue groomed trail, and come back, still have some great restaurants in Snowmass. And then the 2 or 3 nights they want to go out into town, Aspen's just 10 minutes away. Um, you know, People that maybe don't have kids or families, or maybe they're a little bit more expert skiers, are going to be more attracted to downtown Aspen on that level. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe like the city folk versus the rural folk. Cause
yeah, a little bit, and I think mostly it's skiability and skier, kind of family dynamic of having the big wide open, cruisers, and loving snow. I mean, the people that I know that love Snowmass, and they would not want to be in Aspen. And there are people that are in Aspen, they would not want to be in Snowmass, and that's fine. And then you've got a little bit of housing near Buttermilk, and a little more so near Highlands. And each mountain kind of has its own group and attraction. So
yeah. Yeah. Um, so being over in Vale, area, what from what I hear and conversations and stuff, it's almost sort of like there's a little rivalry almost between Aspen and Vale. Would you say that's true?
um,
So
I, I mean, it's been going on for years, right? I mean, there's 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 people that probably live in Vale and say they don't like Aspen, and people that are in Aspen and they say they don't like Vale. I mean, I think both mountain towns are great, and I don't think there's a huge disparity. The most recent thing that I've seen personally, having skied Vale in the last couple of years, is just the lift lines. I think the Epic Pass, and how much, I think because Vale is publicly traded and they make a lot of their money on pass sales and Epic Pass sales. I was pretty shocked to ski at Vale a couple times and just stand in super long lift lines that we just don't have. I mean, I can be
mm,
skiing on December 26th, which is one of, if not the busiest day of the whole year, and my biggest lift line might have been 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
So I feel very fortunate in that regard. I think because we're a little further away, and it's more of a destination spot to go to as opposed to right on I-70. That is one benefit that we have that's pretty special. So
yeah, for sure. So I'm guessing you were probably over here on a Saturday. Because
I
Saturdays are crowded. You can go on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at Vale and not have any lift lines, even on a powder day sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's probably the case. I mean, I think the weekends,
There comes the rivalry,
yeah,
right?
the weekends can be busy. I will tell you, the day that I was skiing the back bowls was a Thursday with my buddies, and there was great new snow. But man, I sat in a 45-minute lift line back in the back bowl,
It
so it was
it can get
it was
crazy,
insane.
no doubt, no doubt,
Yeah.
no doubt for sure. Well, we'll get off that topic, right? um, so we've been talking quite a bit. We don't want to go too long and bore our listeners, but
Right.
okay. So Doug, I've learned a lot about Aspen today, and hopefully our listeners have gotten some value, a little bit of insight to Aspen and the culture around it. Um, how can people find you if they're interested in finding a realtor?
Well, I appreciate that, and I am pretty easy to find. If you go online and just type in Doug Aspen Compass, you'll find me.
I've actually got your. Is this your website right here?
It's yeah. I mean that's via Compass, and I've got a couple different websites that you can find me. But my email. I was an early adopter with Compass, and we founded this office, gosh, almost 9 years ago. So my email is just doug@compass.com, which is pretty simple. And you can Google me and find that information out. And I really work in our whole valley. So Aspen, Snowmass, Basalt, Carbondale, even down to Glenwood occasionally. And I'm certainly happy to help answer questions and be an advisor. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. We've worked with you for a long time, Doug, at our company, and I've got nothing but great things to say about you and things that I've heard, I just want to thank you for coming on today and shedding some light and bringing some value to our listeners. So thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Happy to do it, and enjoy Halloween, and good to see you, Dave, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Doug, you have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Rocky Mountain High.